I told my husband I don't want kids, and now he's saying it's a deal breaker. It was a normal Tuesday when I dropped the bombshell. Everything felt fine. Too fine, honestly, like a calm before a storm. We were sitting at the kitchen table, having our usual morning coffee, the kind of moment where everything should feel settled. I had been thinking about this for a while, wrestling with it in my mind. I couldn't put it off any longer. "Honey, there's something I need to tell you," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. My hands were fidgeting with the napkin in my lap, and I could feel the nervous energy building in my chest. "What's up?" he asked, looking up at me with a concerned frown. He could always tell when something was off. "I don't want kids," I said, my voice quiet but clear. He blinked, then just stared at me for a long moment, like he hadn't heard me properly. "What do you mean? You don't want kids at all?" "I've been thinking about it for a while," I said, trying to explain it. "I don't think I ever truly wanted children. I've been trying to convince myself that I could, but I don't think it's something I can do." He sat back in his chair, staring at me in disbelief. I could tell he was processing, trying to make sense of what I was saying. We talked about kids before, but it was always one of those maybe someday things. I thought he knew how I felt, but it turns out I had never fully confronted it. "I thought we were on the same page about this," he said, his voice filled with confusion. "We've talked about having a family, raising kids together. What changed?" "I don't know," I said, shaking my head, even though I did. "I just don't feel the same way anymore. I thought I could imagine it, but now that I really think about it, I can't. I want a different life, a life that doesn't involve kids." He let out a slow breath, looking down at his hands, then back at me. There was a quiet moment, and I could see the wheels turning in his head. "I don't understand," he said, his voice quieter now. "This isn't just something you can change overnight, though, is it? You've always said you wanted kids." "I thought I did too," I admitted. "But now, the idea of it just doesn't sit right with me. I can't ignore that feeling anymore." "You know how important having kids is to me," he said, his tone becoming more firm. "I've imagined us having children, building a family together. I don't think I can just let that go." "I know," I said softly, "and that's why I'm telling you this now. I don't want to give you false hope. I don't want to be the person who holds you back from that dream." He shook his head, clearly frustrated. "But if we don't want the same things, if you don't want kids and I do, then where does that leave us?" "I don't know," I whispered. The words felt like they didn't belong in my mouth. This wasn't how I imagined it would go. "You don't know?" he repeated, his voice rising. "You're telling me that after everything, you don't know if we have a future?" "I don't know," I said again, my voice trembling. "I wish I could make it work, but I can't change how I feel. I can't pretend that kids are something I want." His face darkened, the frustration clear in his eyes. "And you think that's okay? You think we can just keep going on like this?" "I'm not saying it's okay," I said, trying to keep my emotions in check. "But I can't keep ignoring the truth either." There was a long pause. I could see him processing everything, weighing the decision in his head. The silence between us grew heavy, and it felt like the conversation was slipping out of control. "I never thought it would be like this," he said quietly. "I thought we had more time to figure things out. But if you're not willing to even try, then maybe this isn't going to work." I sat there stunned. I could feel the weight of his words settling over me. This wasn't just a small disagreement. It felt like the foundation of our relationship was being shaken, and I wasn't sure if it would survive. A few days passed before we spoke again. The silence was unbearable. We both went about our routines, but there was a noticeable distance between us. He barely looked at me, and when he did, I could see the hurt in his eyes. I wanted to reach out, to fix this, but I wasn't sure how. So I waited. And then late one night, when we were both sitting on opposite ends of the couch, he finally spoke up. "I have been thinking," he said, his voice quieter than usual. "I don't think I can stay with someone who doesn't want kids. I don't see how we can move forward." I felt a lump in my throat. "You've thought about it that much?" I asked, the question coming out more fragile than I intended. "I've thought about it for days," he admitted. "And honestly, I don't think it's something I can compromise on. I want a family. I've always wanted that." "I get it," I said, swallowing hard. "And I'm not asking you to give that up. I broke off, unable to finish my sentence. He turned to me, his expression torn. "I love you, but I can't give up my dream of being a dad. It's a deal breaker, you know. I don't want to be the reason you walk away." I said, feeling the sting of his words. But I can't pretend either. I can't change how I feel. I don't want kids, and I never will. The conversation ended that night with no resolution. We stayed up late, both of us awake in the silence, wondering if the love we shared was enough to overcome something so fundamental. The next morning, I got a text from him. It wasn't long, just a short message. "I think it's over. I'm sorry." That was it. That was the end, and in that moment, I realized that our relationship couldn't survive this difference. I couldn't change for him, and he couldn't change for me. So now I'm sitting here, wondering if I made the right choice. Was I too stubborn? Should I have just gone along with it, even if it wasn't what I wanted? I love him, but I can't shake the feeling that this was something I had to be honest about, even if it cost me everything. What would you do? Would you leave someone you love over something like this? Or would you sacrifice your own desires to keep the relationship?